You have been asked where the owner of this house is.
Hi lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Belinda Strada. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you'll be the first person to be notified. And to my returning subscribers, thank you so much for all the love and support. To those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, you guys are the real MVP. Thank you so much for all the love and support. So guys, I came by this video where they talk about, right range, a person is a black person in a certain position or in a certain kind of wealth, they become so agitated, like you are not supposed to be in this level, like what actually make you to be on this level? And I just came by this video and I thought to share it up here. Guys, I'm just gonna roll the clip as well as the stitches I was able to put together. Please leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video, and do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment or whatsoever. We're just here for educational purposes, guys. Alright lovelies, let's dive into the video.
Rich Black TikTok has spoken. You have been questioned about your first class plane flights. You have been asked where the owner of this house is. You have been demanded to prove why you are at a cultural institution and why, and how you know anything about this art form. You have even been at the dollar store, all in black, where all the other employees are wearing green, and a woman has come up to you and asked you if you could please help her with her purchase. And these are just the light, funny versions of those questions. In the movie that has delighted audiences and rich black people everywhere and annoyed to no end Charlie Kirk, we have another similar scene where Mahershala Ali's character, G.H. Scott, is not believed to be the owner of the house that he owns. This scene was believable because it has been experienced by so many of you. And we talked about it, but inevitably, when we talk about these things, there's always the pearl clutching, no way. How could anybody assume that of you? What do you mean people are out here assuming that black people don't have nice things? Now, when I was younger and I would hear ladies respond to my mother lightheartedly talking about her day, I thought, yeah, maybe that was a one-off thing. Maybe that's not something that actually happens. One of the things the history bros, I don't even know if that's a thing, history bros, but anyways, something people like to do is say that, look, the Civil War happened. Now you guys got to become citizens. You've had generations to catch up, to get wealthy, to have all the things that American capitalism promises you. If you don't have it now, it's because something's wrong with you. And the reason you don't see yourself everywhere and why you're not represented is because you just didn't pull yourself up by the bootstraps hard enough. Of course, that perspective is easily shot down by a couple books, right? But the other one that's a little bit sneakier is the one that I've run into, which is, well, look, Abraham Lincoln and all these people, they worked really hard to try to correct that. And what's going on? Why hasn't the correction taken? Well, I took a minute to keep reading a little bit of Carol Anderson's White Rage. She's a great historian. And there's a meeting that Abraham Lincoln had that kind of made things a little bit clearer. Reconstruction, the 13th Amendment and the 14th Amendment, and these other laws that came into being were supposed to be this great reset, right? They were supposed to be the time where we say, okay, these people that have been forced, exploited, free labor, they're now citizens, and they're now entitled to the things that citizenship gives. And now we've got to rework our laws. We got to rework the very fabric of how we started this to make sure that they have a shot. Now, most of us learn that those things happen. 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, Reconstruction, radical Reconstruction. And we think, okay, it happened. But then we don't get taught about the rollbacks and the ways that every single thing I just mentioned were fought tooth and nail to make sure that their promise never came true. And it's why when people like him and people like us are in places we're in, it's literally because that was not the plan. It was not the plan of many of our neighbors and people around us. Their ancestors wanted to make sure that every single step of progress that was being done or enacted would not actually take. So it's no surprise that people are shocked when they see you where they're not supposed to see you. All I want to do today is talk about Lincoln's two intellectual heroes and a meeting he had and how that impacted the strength of Reconstruction. Okay, these weren't his only intellectual heroes, but they were significant. We've got Thomas Jefferson and Henry Clay from Kentucky. Thomas Jefferson's great plan, I should remind you, to save America was to just take all the slaves, enslaved people, all the African Americans, and just remove them from the United States. So there's that. Henry Clay started the American Colonization Society and had actually successfully moved thousands of free black people out of the United States. So Lincoln is like, wait, this might work. What if I just get millions of formerly enslaved people to move to Panama, and specifically to a resource-poor part of Panama? Okay, I don't know how that was going to work, but he was like, okay, now all we have to do is convince them. So in August of 1862, 5 influential black leaders are summoned to the White House, and there Lincoln tells them, because of what your people have done to our United States, it's your duty to make a mass exodus to South America. Then he tells them, if not for your race among us, basically, there would be no war. Carol Anderson, Professor Dr. Carol Anderson, makes sure to remind us, how did this race come to be among us? And who was fighting this war in the first place? These are the same formerly enslaved or free black people who had fought to protect the Union. People who were fighting for a nation that hadn't even given them basic humanity and dignity from the beginning. They, the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln, thought that they were the problem. Not necessarily the traitors who enslaved them in the first place, and when they couldn't get their way, threw a fit and threatened and left the country. So yeah, we argue now, unfortunately, about the cause and the point and the purpose of the Civil War, and we cast Lincoln and all these people who put forth these Emancipation Proclamations and things like that as clear-cut, we know what they were fighting for. And in the end, there's this lack of clarity even about how they see these black people and if they even want them to actually have a full pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty here in the U.S. So then we wonder, decades, generations later, why there's still this anger and animosity towards seeing black people in positions of power, black people in positions of wealth. Not saying that those things save you, because remember, the whole thing exists for a class caste system. Race is just the technology, that the story that's invented to keep that in place, as I've said a million times. But now you can understand a little bit of why people act like you shouldn't be there, because everybody up to that point who came before them thought so, unless they were radical abolitionists or people with these deep-set convictions that ran against the grain of the general population at the time. The first duty of the southern states, in their own words, was the preservation of their states. And by the preservation, we know what they meant by that. It was the preservation of slave-owning business. When the Civil War ended and Reconstruction began, and then even radical Reconstruction began, the southern states moved in quick step to make sure they could undo any law, any advancement, any economic or political right that black people were gaining. They stripped it away. And if they couldn't strip it away legally, they would do it extra legally through terrorism. It's been maybe, 50 years since massive legal legislation has been put in place to make sure that African Americans cannot be economically and politically disenfranchised. It's only been that small amount of time. Why do we think the culture or the treatment we're going to get is going to be open door favorable all the time? It just can't be, and the history tells us why. So we can run around and we can be confused. We can pretend that the stories that people tell us aren't happening or aren't true. But to do so is to say that structural economic racism did not happen. And there is nothing in history that lets you back that up.
Well, I'm not rich, but I've definitely been around rich people. As a black person, I know I'm a little fair-skinned today. It is a winter where I am, but I am married to a white woman who's in art, so I'm around a lot of rich people, so I have a lot of access to wealth and wealthy spaces, where I'm typically the only black person or person of color in this space. So my story is in Napa Valley right before the pandemic, and I'm at this winery, and I have a glass of wine, and I'm doing work because I'm a child of immigrants. You know, I'm very, very much working all the time. So I'm there to support my wife. She's taking the owner out for, she's on a tour with the owner, and she's going to talk about art with her. And while I'm waiting in the little area in Napa Valley, this nice winery, people are looking at me like, who is that? Why is this person here? You know, I'm feeling that place of, hey, who is that? And I know it's very common for anybody of color or black person in a white space. And I'm very much an anorexic Dwayne Rock Johnson, so people think I'm so-and-so, all these kinds of characters. So I go to the person who's pouring the wine, kind of like a bartender, but for Napa Valley, so she's a little hoity-toity. And she's giving me a lot of attitude, like, who are you here with? What wine? Do you know what type of wine you would like? I see that you're not fully enjoying the space. Oh. And she's just kind of questioning. What are you doing here? How do you fit into this picture of most people who are just relaxing, but also like, how did you get here? This is where people of wealth typically hang out. And she was just really aloof, really. So can't really say she was, who knows what was going on, but she was very surprised and just like, who is this person in front of me face, and that type of attitude. So I go back and I'm doing my work. Well, my wife comes back with the owner, and she comes up to me and says, oh, you're the husband. Oh. And she's very granola crunchy, but also a boss lady. You know, she's very in charge. She sees me and she's like, oh, she recognized I'm the husband. And then I almost felt like, oh, here it comes. And then she takes me over to the bar with that same lady from earlier who's giving me a hard time of, you know, like, what am I doing here type thing. And she's like, oh, this is our special guest. My name is Simone. She's like, Simone, give him the best wine in the house. And the look on this lady, she changed dramatically. She's like, oh, yes. I will give him the best. And she couldn't have been any more different. She was like almost kind of shaking, pouring the red wine and just poured it into my glass and just said, oh, this is the best. This is medium bodied. This is the best that we have here. And then she said, okay. Certainly, sir. She's going from sir. She's calling me sir all of a sudden. Before she wasn't calling me sir. She was just like, oh, okay. Like I said, very aloof to all of a sudden, she couldn't have been any more friendly, any more accommodating, and extremely generous. She even said, oh, okay, why don't you go out and see the view of the vineyard? Why don't you go sit over here? And she walked me outside, me and my wife, and then it was a nice little view of the vineyard. And I did my work on my laptop, continued on there. And she just couldn't have changed any faster. All because she recognized that I am somehow associated with the owner. And also, I almost felt like, do you know who my wife is? My white wife. But ultimately, she couldn't have changed, all because she didn't know how I fit. But the default wasn't just being a nice person and treating me like everybody else. So again, you never know. You should treat everyone with respect. But that's a common thing that happens, that unless they find out where you fit, they'll be aloof and their default settings will set in. So again, my experience as a black person in a white space, I'd like to hear yours as well.
Like, seriously, lovelies, to these pan-colored people, black people are not supposed to be in a certain position. They have made a system whereby black people are not supposed to be in a certain position. Meanwhile, this actually happened in times of segregation, where they actually put black people in a certain area while the other people in a certain area. So they have made this system to, remain like that. And anytime they see a successful black person, they begin to ask themselves, like, why is it that this person is in this position? We have actually made it possible for these people not to ascertain any kind of position. We have actually made it very hard and difficult for them. This actually has to do with educational wise. Like when I see that black people are trying to gain something, achieve something, try to even do better than them, they become so agitated. They become so, this is what they call, white rage. They become so jealous. Will I call it jealous? Because they have already they have already made it possible for someone of my own, skin color not to reach in a certain level in life. You are supposed to remain in the same category. Look at, you're not supposed to remain in a certain category. You are supposed to remain there because of the person you are, because of the color of the skin you came out with. Look at this other guy that I stitched video. He was talking about how he's actually married to maybe a well-to-do white woman. That he was an environment meant for people like them. They was trying to ask him what he's doing there, why is he supposed to be here, because he is not supposed to be here. They have told these people right from time that these people, they are supposed to be under us. We are supposed to be on top while you are in the bottom. This actually reminds me of a video that I posted, was it 2 days back, about a white man actually complaining of how black women are so racist towards him, because he realized that in all his places of work, all his bosses happens to be a black woman. So because of that, he has this wide range in him. He has this range, like, why is she supposed to be in this position where I am supposed to be? Why is it not me as a person of my own caliber, or me as a person with the privilege? Why is it that I am gonna be answerable to a woman of this color, for that matter? So this thing is just a system which they have created. So because of this, a lot of people of my own kind of skin try as much as they can to keep on raising their heads up, but they bend in dragging their heads down, because they want them to remain in that position which they have assigned them to be. Their ancestors have told them to be like these people, not to get into a certain level. That's why when you see someone of organization made for, you know what I mean, they begin to look at you as if, like, who actually gave you an IV to be here? Who gave you the audacity to be here? You are not supposed to be here. Just gonna also make emphasis on this man who is so ranged, 43 years old. He's so ranged that a black woman happens to be his boss, and he's calling this black woman mean, racist, and all of that. Instead of him to just accept the fact that this woman, no matter how they have tried to pull her down, no matter how they have tried to drag her down, she have worked herself out. She has worked herself out to remain in that position that actually made her to be a boss, which you are under as a white man. So this actually got this man so, angry. This got him so upset. Then he has to come on TikTok to tell everybody how people of my own kind of, race are so racist. Now they are trying to turn it around, making it look as if on type are not racist. Now coming to white rage. These people don't like the fact that people of my own type are progressing in life. We're able to succeed. We're able to achieve some certain level. Then when they see these people achieving this, they become very angry. They become very angry, jealous that you are not supposed to be here. You are meant to be in the other side. That is why segregation has to come in, because they have made it in as a system that they are supposed to be in this arena. They're not supposed to be in this, in this arena with us, because they are meant to always remain under us. That's what he was talking about, how be able to board a flight with a black pilot, because he feels that black pilots are not qualified. To ask myself, is it that qualification now has to do with someone's type of skin or someone's academic excellence? Time they see that someone of color is trying to achieve, they make it possible for them to drag this person down to the mud, just because they don't want this person to get out there, just because they don't want the person to raise his or her head, but because they have made it possible for every other person of mine to remain underneath. even in the educational level, even anywhere. They have made it possible. They have sworn that these people will continue to remain under us. That's why anytime they see people like myself succeeding, trying to make ends meet, no matter everything they have done to suppress, they are still, surviving. They get very jealous. They get so agitated. They want to, like, what? How is this even possible? That's why even in parties today, when you as a black person decide to go to kind of parties meant for, you know what I mean, when they look at you like, who brought you here? How dare you? How were you able to be in this area? Secondly, this is also why anytime they see someone of my type in a rich neighborhood or a neighborhood that is, very comfortable, they decide to maybe harass you in your house. They decide to ask you, what are you doing here? And this is your house. But because they have seen you as someone, just because they have seen you as someone who is not supposed to be in this area, they decide to embarrass you, ask you questions. In your own neighborhood, you're not supposed to fish here, you're not supposed to be in this place, what are you doing here? Meanwhile, anytime they find out that you actually live in this neighborhood, they become so agitated, angry, jealous and all of that. Anyways, lovelies, why not leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video, and do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying, harassment or whatsoever. We're just here for educational purposes. So please share this video, subscribe if you're here to do that, and I will see you, lovelies, when I upload the next one.